Thank you everyone for being here. I know we got a little bit of a late start, but I appreciate you all hanging out with us. We were waiting for the crew who were doing what they do best, which is seeing patients experiencing homelessness out in the field. So we're very grateful for what they do and appreciate them being here as well. So just to welcome everyone, my name is Brandon Cook, and I am the Healthcare for the Homeless and Medical Respite Director here at New Horizon Family Health Services. We are gathered here this December 21st, the first day of winter, and also the longest night of the year, to honor the memory and dignity of people experiencing homelessness in our community who have paid the ultimate price for our country's inability to end homelessness, or at least make it brief and rare. Longer nights and lower temperatures, along with inadequate resources, work to contribute to premature death of many people experiencing homelessness, on top of the other hazards that come with that experience. Chronic health conditions are exacerbated by lack of housing or inadequate housing, being hit by passing cars while on foot or on a bicycle, complications from drugs and alcohol, etc. According to the CDC, the life expectancy for the total U.S. population was 77.8 years in 2020, and in 2021 is currently at 79.1 years. The average age of folks from our humble little list here is roughly about 52 years of age. This is further evidence that folks experiencing homelessness are taken from us far too soon compared to their housed counterparts. We are here to give honor and dignity to these folks who may have been denied the honor and dignity they deserved in their final moments. So the city of Greer honors us and our friends experiencing homelessness with the following proclamation. And it says, Greer, City of Greer, proclamation, Mayor Danner recognizes Homeless Persons Memorial Day, whereas December 21st marks the first day of winter and the longest night of the year, and whereas the National Health Care for the Homeless Council has designated December 21st as National Homeless Persons Memorial Day, and whereas New Horizon Family Health Services Healthcare for the Homeless program team and community partners gather together on this day to remember those who passed away this year while experiencing homelessness, and whereas every member of our community deserves the dignity and respect of obtaining safe, adequate, and affordable housing, and whereas we recognize the nonprofit organizations who work tirelessly to assist those experiencing homelessness in our community, and whereas in remembering those we have lost this year while experiencing homelessness, we must continue to work together in our efforts to make homelessness brief and rare. Now, therefore, but Rick Danner, Mayor of the City of Greer, do hereby proclaim December 21st, 2021 is Homeless Persons Memorial Day, and encourage all citizens of Greer to remember and honor the lives of those in our community who passed away while experiencing homelessness. And then he signed it. So want to thank the mayor and the city for that. And moving right along, homelessness doesn't have to be an experience for most, and it can be brief and rare and non-recurring, but it starts at the local level. It starts in the community. At New Horizon Family Health Services, our Healthcare for the Homeless program provides access to primary, medical, dental, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to nearly 2,600 individuals in our community experiencing homelessness each year. And there are many other agencies, community partners, and concerned citizens who are working in this community to make homelessness brief and rare. Tonight, we are fortunate enough to have a few partners with us, and I want to recognize Heather Gatchell from Greenville Homeless Alliance and Mary Kay Campbell from Greater Greenville Mental Health. And I also want to give a special recognition to Nick Bush from United Ministries Place of Hope. And now we will have a few words from Heather and Mary Kay, who will talk about why it's important that we remember these individuals, and Nick will also be helping with some of the names as we honor those that we've lost. Mary?
So it is on the first day of winter and the longest night of the year. We, as others gather around the country, we gather together to remember our homeless folks experiencing homelessness that died on the street. Individual lives that died in a tent, under a bridge, in a vehicle, in an abandoned house. Often quietly and out of sight. This was someone's son, daughter, mother, father, uncle, friend, partner, co-worker. Someone who served in the military, who fled from domestic violence, chronic, just the body gave out, chronic health conditions, untreated medical illness, someone that suffered from schizophrenia, a victim of a hate crime or violence, someone who suffered from addiction. So it is on this evening we take time to reflect and remember. Going forward, our challenge as a community is to commit to doing more together. This is not okay. It's not acceptable. Our folks deserve better, and I know our community can do better. But for this evening, let us listen and hear their names called, and remember, let it be so.
I first just want to thank the Horizon Family Health Service, and especially the Health Care for the Homeless program, for their commitment to hosting this service annually. It's so important, and we are so thankful for partners like you in this community. The Greenville Homeless Alliance was formed around the idea that the individual, that the person experiencing homelessness has to be at the center of all that we do. It's in our logo, it's in our values. It is critical that we show value to every human being. Unfortunately, we hear often that those experiencing homelessness find that they don't feel seen or known or valued. Just this year, I lost a dear aunt who was my favorite, my Aunt Gail. And every time you would be in Aunt Gail's presence, she'd say, "Come here, let me see your face." And she'd look at you really good. And then she'd ask you lots of questions. And she wanted to know what was going on in your life. And then she'd hug you in that way that you know you've been hugged. I felt seen and known and loved. And not everybody can have an Aunt Gail, but we're really lucky in this community because you can have a Mary Kay, or you can have a Brandon, or a Nick. There's 100 other names I can call of direct service providers who every day are showing up and making sure that those in our community who feel unseen and unknown and not valued are recognized and given dignity and are cared for. So I want to really thank right now on behalf of the Homeless Alliance, all of our direct service providers, and everybody that gives hope each day to people that are experiencing homelessness. We we believe that homelessness is solvable, like Brandon said. We can do better, but it will take us working together as a community, united. So tonight, as we honor the memory of these folks, and let's remember too, that we mourn what we value. So as we honor the memory of those we lost this year, may it give us more courage and impassion us to do better, to make sure that people feel seen and known and valued, to make sure that everyone in our community has a place to call home.
Thank you, Heather and Mary Kay, for those very inspiring and encouraging words, and also for being with us here today. So, before we read the names, let me just say that this is hard work. This is very hard work. Each year, our Health Care for the Homeless program team has this incredible opportunity to help some of the most vulnerable among us, and we have the opportunity to build those relationships and forge those bonds only to have folks ripped from us too soon. Some folks we only know for a short time, others we were just getting to know, but for some, we were the only family they had left. We go through the list of these names on this day, and you will hear how we were able to walk with some of these folks and the connections that we were able to make. And at this time, we will say the names so we can remember them.
Good evening. Well, I have four guys that really touched my heart. David, he was a very kind guy. I met him at Salvation Army in Greenville. He also moved to Spartanburg Rescue Mission, and he was very kind to us. He was like an intern there and made sure that we were set up every Wednesday that we went to Spartanburg. And I saw him like the last Thanksgiving on TV. So I always teased him the last few times I saw him and called him a celebrity because he was at the turkey fry, and he was interviewed by the reporter, and he was like, well, I was just doing what I do. I said, yeah. I said, we appreciate you because you always take care of us. But he actually was able to leave, and he had a fiance, and he was really happy. And he called one day, and he needed us. He was needing medication. His medication was refilled, but he really sounded bad, and he was diagnosed with cancer. And it was really sad because he was only able to be out and actually live with this person he grew to love for only a few months, but we lost him in May. Very sweet man. Also, there was another one, Dewey. He was awesome, a very nice man in Spartanburg Rescue Mission, and very, very humble. And he realized that he didn't have much time, but he listened to our provider that we had at that time, and he accepted that he was going to go into hospice. And the hospice people, when I called, checked on him, they said he was awesome. He really warmed their spirits. And we lost him in May as well. Also, Orlando, he was a gentle giant, tall guy. To me, he seemed like he was 7 foot tall, but just quiet, humble, and he had been in prison for like 25 years. Come there, changed his life. Everybody loved him. We enjoyed him every time he came on to see us. But he contracted COVID, and he just never recovered from that. But I was just so happy to know that he had changed his life after being, having that situation for 25 years. He was able to be happy with people around him that actually cared for him. He wasn't alone. And the other one is Roosevelt. We called him Rosie. I met him at the county. And Roosevelt was a very kind older gentleman, and he didn't have anybody. But, you know, he did some time as well. But he was a very kind spirit, and we just enjoyed him. Every time he came on, he was humble as well. And he was like that from the beginning. And Mr. Rosie was just a loving person. I'm just happy that he was able to get his own apartment and actually live on his own, and you know, that was just awesome. So that's just a few words. We could say more, or I could say more, but I'm gonna let everybody else have a chance because I can keep talking. Okay.
My name is Kendall, and I have had the privilege of working for New Horizon for the last 3 years. And I am the nurse for the medical respite program. And we take in folks, currently it's just gentlemen. We're working on getting a place set up for our women. But we take in folks who live in shelter or live on the streets and who've been in the hospital for whatever reason, and they still need a little medical care. We can take them in to shelter, and they can still have medical care with a nurse to follow and with our providers. And last year we took in a gentleman that my sweet friend Robin, who works at Triune, she tried for 1.5 years to get this guy to agree to come to respite because he was in the hospital. I can't even tell you how many times, and he refused every single time. He would not come. He liked his independence. He liked taking care of himself, and he didn't think he needed anybody to help him. Well, the last time it really took a toll on him. He was in 86 days. He had gotten hit by a car, and was good the day he got hit by the car, and got up, and the next day he was comatose. He had a brain injury. So he was in the hospital for a good bit. And so he finally agreed to come to respite because he realized he needed some help. So he came, and the day that I met Kim, there have been a few guys that have come through respite that the second I meet them, you know that they're gonna leave a special place in your heart, and they're gonna just be there forever. And he was one of those guys. He just super nice, super kind, super thoughtful, was much sicker than he realized he was, and still craved his independence. He still felt like he was perfectly fine. He was out looking for a job, and he just felt like he was good to go. But the trick with brain injuries is you don't know how sick you are, and you don't know how sick they are until something happens. And unfortunately, he lost his bed due to some circumstances that were out of our control. And we did everything we could. Brandon and I both drove many miles and walked through lots of mud puddles and lots of ditches and trees looking for him, because we knew that he was not safe. He and the worst part about that, and the worst part about him not being safe, was he didn't know he was not safe. He didn't know he could not care for himself on his own. So we looked and looked and looked, and we were never able to find him. And about 3 weeks after that, we found out that he had passed away. He passed away from hypothermia, and that's still hard. Still a tough one to swallow, a tough one to even talk about sometimes. But the last time I saw Kim, right before he got kicked out of shelter, he came in and he sat down. He goes, "Oh, Miss Kendall, I'll be right back. I've got something for you." And I was like, "Okay." So he came running back in, and he handed me this rock, and it's a little rock, and it's painted, and it says hope on it. And he said, "I found this today when I was walking through the woods." And he said, "As soon as I saw it, I thought about you, and so I picked it up and put it in my pocket, and I just want you to have it." And this is very special to me because that was the last time I saw Kim before he passed. We were never able to find him, and he intentionally stopped to pick it up because he thought it would be good for me to keep, because he knew how sometimes things get rough when you have guys that you lose and guys that just are gone and that you just can't help, that aren't willing to let you help them. So this has a special place on my desk. I have a little memorial area that I have set up with things that I have been given from patients in the past, pictures of one that I lost last year. So this is special. It'll always be with me, and the memory of Kim will always be with me because he was a good man, and he died too soon. It was way too soon. It wasn't his time. But sometimes we don't realize what we're doing until it's too late. So, but thank you very much for everybody coming out today and helping us remember all these folks, because they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm the nurse with Respite, one of the nurses, and I want to talk about 3 people tonight. The first gentleman I don't know, I never met him, but I know his family. His name is Taylor. Taylor died at the age of 30. A lot of our patients come from families that don't have the best circumstances, but Taylor did. He came from a loving family. He went to private school. He had a lot of advantages. But Taylor was injured. He got pain medication, and then his manic depression became apparent, and he got hooked on drugs. And his parents tried everything, and anyway, he died in February at the age of 30. He was a very young man, but it shows that people that we deal with every day come from all different walks of life. Sometimes they make wrong choices, sometimes they have medical problems that they try to self-medicate, and that's what Taylor did. My next gentleman, his name is Willard. Willard was a long-time patient. We saw him right back then on rescue mission. He was a hoot. He had a gravelly voice whenever he called. We didn't have to ask his name. We knew it was Willard. Willard, we haven't seen him since 2020. We believe he moved to Easley, and he died in August, and we do not know what he died from. He was an alcoholic, and he was 56. My last gentleman was Stephen. We lost him last February, and it was possibly a needless death. He was at Greenville Rescue Mission. His vital signs were horrible. The doctor tried to get him to go by ambulance to the hospital. It was on a Monday, and by Thursday or Friday he had died. So he had probably died due to his medical condition. But each of the patients, even though we don't say stories about them, they all have special places in our heart. And we remember them, and we remember their families and the other people that were touched, including the other men in the shelter and women in the shelter that they come in contact with. Thank you all.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Bush, and I work at Place of Hope. I've worked there over the past 12 years, and I've been very fortunate to meet many of these folks over those years, and I'm going to talk about 4 people today. Some of them span over a 12-year relationship, and some of them span over just a month. The first person, her name was Lydia. Lydia, we literally just had met her a couple months ago. She was struggling with some demons, was dating a guy that I've been working with for a few years, and she had just gotten out of a rehab situation, and unfortunately was still struggling with those kinds of things. And so I just want to remember her, and I had to tell her boyfriend that was a very difficult thing to do, to sit and talk with him in that struggle, and we're still talking about it. He just came out of, again, this recently just happened, so he just came out of his tent last week, and so that'll be something we'll continue, to talk about her memory. The next one I want to talk about is Tim. Tim I've known for 12 years. He was spunky, at times a pain to all of us. Jason can attest. But he was a wonderful soul. He'd always come in and make you smile. Over the years, we had different types of battles, but we always worked out together. And I'll miss him very much. I honestly think about Tim probably at least once a week. Another one is, they call him Guitar Greg. I've known Guitar Greg for probably about 8 years, and the thing about Greg was we'd go down to his camp, and he's Guitar Greg. He'd always be playing the guitar, and he was just very talented with that. And the other thing too is he was an amazing artist. He used to work at Triune over at the art room, and I think Robin and a few folks over there, they still have some of his art. And my final one is JoJo. JoJo died maybe about 3 weeks ago. I met him for the Pete Hollis situation back about 6 years ago. And the first thing about JoJo was he was a dancer. He loved to dance. You'd see him, he'd be out there panhandling, and he'd be dancing. And that was just a little bit of what his spirit was like. And sadly, he had some health issues, but he knew he was going to die. And a social worker at the hospital called me and asked me to come, and I sat with him. So I visited him for the next month, at least once a week. And it was, even though he knew that he was passing, his spirit was still there. And so we made a video, and I brought it down to the camp because he just wanted to let them know that he loved them, and to say goodbye. With COVID, you can only have one person visit you a day, but so I was able to share that with those folks. And so I will miss him too. So, thank you.
So I'm Jason. I work with the homeless team. It's been a really difficult year. When I was going through the list, there was about 35 that I knew personally and had worked with this year, last year, and it's a lot of debt to process in 1 year. But Brandon said I couldn't talk about all 35, so just kidding. So I've only chosen two, the two that I was the closest with, and something I wanted to reiterate. Sometimes a lot of times our people don't have family and that community that they can lean on and support, and for a lot of them we become their family, and so these two were like family. The first one was Thomas. I met Thomas right out here on Wade Hampton back in 2008. A day like this, it was freezing and raining, and he was walking down the sidewalk, and I was like, man, that dude's got to be homeless to be walking in this. And so I pulled over and talked to him, and he gave me like his whole life story. First meeting, and he had been homeless since 1993. He had left Ohio. I don't remember now why, by choice, but started riding trains, went all over the country, California, Texas, Louisiana, ended up in Greenwood, South Carolina for some reason, but ended up here. He was living in the junkyard, and so I started working with him. We got him hooked up with Voc Rehab and got him into some shelters, and I left for 2 years. I came back, and he still had my card in his wallet. He called me up. He's like, I've been trying to call you for 2 years. I told you I was leaving. And so he was on the street until about 2017, started getting early retirement. He was able to get into the disability housing in Greenville. And so I would go visit him at least once a week. We would go on Fridays, and on Fridays on the History Channel, it's about aliens, and so we would watch like 2 hours about aliens. And I would say, oh, like, you believe in aliens? Oh, no. They go, why don't we watch this every week? Well, it's pretty good. Okay, so that's what we would do. And the last couple of years, he was in the hospital and on the ventilator 7 times. And so I was his emergency contact, so they would always call me, and I would go sit with him in the ICU, and I would say goodbye, and then he would wake up, go home to his apartment, and then 2 months later they would call me, he's in ICU, he's not gonna make it, and I would go back, and it would be the same thing. And so he ended up catching the virus, and he didn't make it. But you know, every time I would come and he would wake up, the nurse would say, "Oh, we're so glad. You know, he hasn't had any visitors. We're so glad you came. Like, are you his son?" He would say, "No, that's my friend." Like, I'm at work, but yeah, he was my friend, and I really miss him. I don't watch the alien shows anymore. I don't want to think about it, but my second guy is Mike. Mike is one that he was from around the Simpsonville area, around where I live, and so he would talk to me about places to fish and places to go. And the thing about Mike is he struggled with a lot of stuff, but none of us, me, Mary Kay, Nick, none of us ever regretted going to see Mike. He was never in a bad mood. He was never belligerent. He was always so thankful that we would come see him, and he struggled with a lot. I mean, his mom was his biggest fan, accepted him for everything, and she passed, and you know, the lifestyle that he chose to live, his father and his brother rejected him, and he never recovered from that. And then last year he was the one that found his best friend that we talked about last year that passed away. And so yeah, just had a lot of inner demons, but you know, don't judge me for this, but Mike was the only one that I would talk to out in public when I had the kids with me, because he would joke around with the kids, and I didn't have to worry about him saying vulgar things and inappropriate things. And we'd be driving down Woodruff, and the kids would say, "Oh no, there goes your friend, there goes your friend." I said, "Yeah, that's my friend Mike." But in October they found him under a bridge, Woodruff Road, and I'm not really sure why, but I just hope and pray that he has that peace that he was looking for so long. And he was my friend. They were both my friends, and I miss
him. As Jason stated, this has been a hard year for all of us, and it's been a hard year, and we unfortunately experienced loss of our own here at New Horizon. Cindy was a part of our team. She worked really hard to ensure that the folks we serve out in our mobile unit, the folks who were seen in our fixed locations who are experiencing homelessness, could get referred to their specialty care, to their oral health, to any other specialty care. She worked hard, and she loved it. She actually loved it. She loved working with this team. She loved working in this office. She loved working for this organization. Cindy was truly a beautiful spirit, and unfortunately, we didn't have long to walk with her. But we did get to know her, and you know, much like Jason and his friend, Cindy and I often talked about where to go fishing. I'm a horrible angler. I do a lot more fishing than I do catching. But you know, we talked about it anyway. We talked about the love she had for her grandson, and I know he's missing her like crazy right now. Yeah, that's all I want to say about her. It's been a hard year, so as you guys can see, and as Jason said, you know, we walk with a lot of folks on this journey, and so I'm just gonna go through and make sure we don't miss anyone. So just bear with us for a little while longer. So we'll start with Kim, and we'll say John and Gregory and Nicholas and Lee and Floyd and Mickle. And we heard about Orlando. We've heard about Taylor and Steve. There's Melissa. There's Corey. There's David. We heard about Tim. There's Wendy. There's Stephen W. We also heard about Roosevelt and Sammy and Eddie. We definitely heard about Greg and Thomas W. We heard about Dewey and James. And there's Wendy. There's Garrett. There's John. There's Billy and Jerry and Linda. And we heard about Willard. And we heard about Jason's friend Tom. And Dan and Jerry and Christopher. And we heard about Cindy. And we heard about Mike. And Sharon and Todd and Paul. And we heard about Joseph, and we heard about Lydia. And there's Rusty, and Ronnie, and Robin, just so recently added Jenny, Melissa, David, Christine, and Mike B. Y'all, that's a lot of names, and I have to be honest with you, unfortunately, our list this year is bigger than it was last year. But what I want to do now is, we've heard all those names. We've said the names, we've heard them. We want to remember them. If you would all join me now for a moment of silence. Thank you for that. In closing, we have said the names. You have heard the names. We must all remember the names. We'll continue to do the hard work, and we will continue to collaborate with the community in order to make homelessness brief and rare. As a great mentor of mine, Bobby Watts, the CEO of the National Health Care for the Homeless Council, once said, "Homelessness is evil and must be destroyed." And he is right. And as a community, we can. I encourage anyone who can hear my voice, if you're not involved, get involved. If you're already involved, remember, you are not alone in this work, and you have allies. Homelessness is an experience and doesn't have to define a person in life or in death. We are all someone's brother, sister, uncle, cousin, mother, father, and all deserve dignity in life and in death. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you to our partners who were able to join us in person as well as on the live stream. Thank you to the City of Greer. Thank you to the Healthcare for the Homeless staff. But most importantly, thanks to all who are no longer with us for allowing us into their lives and for allowing us to walk beside them in life so we can remember them in death. Thank you.